Today's intention is to be of service, to be of maximum service to the people around me, my clients, my family, and anybody that I run into today.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.
All right. Well, hope y'all are having an awesome day. Welcome to Student of Intention, your little corner of the internet where we spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery. My name is Alex Gafford, and I'll be your host again today. This is the second time this month as Bobby is spending the majority of the month focusing on his passion, reading, writing, and, of course, promoting his new book, The 5 Buckets. I have a copy right here. I know I mentioned this on the last one, but it's really a quick, fun read, full of immediate applications. I am really excited to introduce to you today's guest, Mike Miller, who will be talking about a topic that I find really cool. He's going to talk about hustle and kind of work ethic. And I want to touch on the big idea that I introduced to you in the last episode with Dave Rhodes, who, by the way, is a very close friend of Mike's.
Close personal buddy. Surf with Dave 3 to 4 days a week at least. Talk to Dave almost every day.
I love it. So if you enjoyed that talk as much as I did, you're going to really enjoy this one. So the big idea that we touched on last week was how some manage to live exactly the way they want while others just dream about it. And Bobby kind of gave a fun little quote along these lines. He said, "Live like nobody's watching." And I just love that. And this applies to Mike, by the way, and you'll find out why. And I am going to introduce you to him in just a little while, but first I want to give you a quick story about an intention as customary on the show. So I want to talk real quick about an intention with you. It didn't happen this past week, but nonetheless, it's really relevant. My wife, Jessica, is probably the most intentional person that I know. And she often will catch people by surprise and, they'll ask her, "Why'd you do that?" She'll say, "This is my love language." And in our backyard, we have a pretty big garden. It's just full of flowers, fruits and veggies. It produces almost all year round, spring through late fall. And she loves to get out of the house and get in the garden. It's just kind of her way to decompress and get away from the kids sometimes. And what she'll normally do is cut flowers, make little arrangements to put in our house. And just recently, she's been keeping jars, and she started making these little flower arrangements. And we have a fence line that goes along the border of our property and the neighborhood walking path. And she started to put these little flower arrangements that she makes on the walking path. And so when people are walking by, just strangers or neighbors we've never met, she'll ask them if they'd like to keep a flower arrangement. And I know it brings her a lot of joy, but this little intention has really brought a lot of joy to our neighbors. It's been a way for her to share something that she's intentional about. She doesn't want to miss her time in the garden, smelling the roses, literally, smelling the flowers, and she's sharing that with other people in our neighborhood. And I can't tell you how many times just recently, just in the last week, I've had somebody come up to me and say, "I just love those flowers I got from your wife. That is just so sweet." And people are just so caught off guard, and it's brought them a lot of joy. So the reason I mention this is because I want to ask you this. As you go about your busy week, what are some little things that you really love to do? What are some things that you're already doing that you could easily share with others? It could be time, or it could be something tangible. But think about that as you go throughout the week. Even if it's something very small, it could have a huge, huge impact on someone else. And I want to leave you with that idea for now. And then we're going to I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mike to the show. I'm going to bring him on. Let me give you just a real quick high-level background on Mike Miller. He heads up the telecom carrier division over at SidePath. It's a technology integrator based in Southern California. He's built an impressive book of business, including some really well-known labels, companies you would know of. I don't know if he can share those with you, but he remains a top producer consistently with some of the nation's biggest telecom brands. He has his own podcast, by the way, called Boardroom Sessions, where he interviews Southern California's best and brightest technology leaders and executives. Mike is also an avid surfer. He mentioned it briefly. Maybe we'll talk about that just a little bit. But he truly lives his life with intention. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I mentioned, Mike, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Friends of, several of the past guests, so it's an honor and a privilege.
I just can't resist asking you a little bit about surfing. I think you and Dave did was that last year? You did 100-day surf challenge?
Yeah. So speaking of intention, Dave and I had a conversation at the beginning of 2020, and we were getting ready for our goal setting for the year, which is actually on a podcast we record every year on the Boardroom Sessions podcast. But we're going over our goals for the year. And one of the things we both realize is that surfing is one of the highlights of our life. And I know that sounds traumatic to some people, and some people don't understand it. They think it's a pastime or a hobby or anything. But I think there's a lot of boxes that get checked when surfing. For one, there's a playing of energy. There's an energy transformation in the ocean that you're out there. There's being out in the water in the wild. There's athletic exercise out there. So there's a lot to it. And so Dave and I put a goal down to surf more. And so that wasn't a good enough goal. So we needed an actual tangible goal that we could reach, measure, and, attain. And so we started with 100 days. And I got 138 days. I think Dave crushed it and got more than that. But we both smashed the 100-day goal that year, and I think we're on for more this year already. It helps to have a couple surf trips under our belt, which we got this year. Went to El Salvador and others, so we surfed quite a bit this year.
That is insane. Thank you for sharing that. That's an easy topic that could easily fill all the time and more that we have available for this entire show. But I saw a post that you made a few days ago on social media, and it's just so good I can't resist. It says, so Mike posted a picture of him with a surfboard on the beach, of course, and it says, don't forget to make time for board meetings in between all those other meetings.
Yeah. So things actually changed very much during the whole pandemic for myself, my workflow, if you will. I was one of those that had a routine of getting up in the morning, getting my workout or physical activity done early, and then heading off to the office, right? Whether it was my office, whether it was a client's conference room, whether it was Starbucks to meet with people, I was just out and about. And that was an everyday routine for, decades. And as we all worked from home and learned how to do things differently, I learned how to work from home differently. It was different for me to work from home. And so one of the things I've been doing is incorporating mic time in the middle of a workday, because my day is highly flexible, and there are windows that I have in there that are, I don't have a calendar meeting or I don't have something on the calendar, if you will. And I largely fill those today. Luckily enough for me, I live here in Southern California in Huntington Beach. I can put a paddleboard on the car, or I can surf permitting, weather permitting, put a surfboard in the car, and I can take a meeting from the beach, in my car, and then go surf for an hour, and then come back and take another meeting. And I do that. And I know to some people that sounds awesome. Some people it sounds different and foreign. But to me, it's becoming a work-life blend. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And that was the meaning of that post was, hey man, do some things for yourself in the middle of the day. We now have a different work pattern. Take advantage of it. I saw, I've had some time with 10 minutes before a call, right? Where it used to be I was somewhere else. I was in an office. And so that 10 minutes didn't mean much. But if I have 10 minutes to a client call today, I might put my dog on my lap and sit in my rocking chair in my garage. It just might be something small like that. And I cherish those moments today.
I love that story. The last episode we interviewed Dave, he told us the story about the 5-hour workday and about, how outside of his normal working hour, or if it was within his normal 8-hour working day, everybody gets into this 8-hour workday mindset. And he used to feel guilty if he went to a kid's baseball game in the afternoon during working hours, or just take a small break in the middle of the day. Has it always felt like that for you? Just something essential that just felt natural that helped your day? Or
oh yeah, there were all kinds of social values placed on the work ethic, right? And we had that long day and never stop and always grinding and things of that nature. But life has changed and things have become very, very remote oriented, and we're highly email, text, and phone driven today for our communications. And so people working from all kinds of different workspaces. I've had to smash those, and I've systematically smashed those. And we can go into process if you want to, but good friends of mine that are in my mentor group or vision crew or others that I know are hard chargers, like Dave Rhodes, for example, we measure and we figure out how productive we are. And so I have found with measurement, there's no question that I'm more productive doing it this way. Or, there used to be a work-life balance, like, hey, I got to work and then I have to have a life. I don't believe in that anymore. I think it's a work-life blend. I believe ever since the email hit my phone, my handheld device, I think that's when everything kind of started to change. And that was a decade or so ago, I think now, at least. And when that started to happen, things eventually got to where they are today, where I'm always working. I think there's never an off button. There's definitely times that I can punch out and go surf, but if I'm not intention about that surf session, by the way, I will work in my head while I'm out in the water, and that defeats the whole purpose. So
how do you turn that off though? So you're busy. I mean, this isn't just passive work, by the way. So this is intense work. Mike is having conversations with executives of very large companies, and he's doing some pretty high intensity work. And so you go from super high intensity work, high stakes, to you're just chilling, surfing, doing what you love. How do you make that transition?
For one, I have to keep a very good list. I'm old school. I use pen and a book, right? And so I have a very solid system of tasks that need to get completed, and I carry them over, kind of Ben Franklin-esque, Franklin Planner-esque, if you will. I took a class with 7 highly effective habits, Stephen Covey. I'm going to say early 2000s, and I learned some habits there on how to put things down and get things done. So I do a lot of that, but I also practice what we call deep work, right? So I have times during the day where I set up for Mike, and they're not tasks; they're more high level. How do I want to be? How do I want to come off today? What's on my calendar today? How do I want to be in those meetings? Is there something I should do now beforehand so that I can get ready for that meeting? So there's some of that work done early, and then it allows me to have the freedom of thought, freedom of mind to actually do the work that needs to get done. You could.
So Mike, you use the exact word deep work. So this Cal Newport book is wildly successful, and a lot of people talk about it like deep work is really important, but I rarely find anybody that can ever achieve more than a few hours of true deep work. Can you talk a little bit about that just for a second?
Sure. So I've developed a pattern, if you will. I've developed a series of tools that I use today, right? If we'll fast forward to what I've been doing for the last several years. And the deep work starts macro, right? So I have a vision board every year, right? And I have a set of goals every year, which are different. One, the vision board is more ethereal. Some people call it woo-woo. I used to think it was a bunch of hippie BS, to put some big visions on a board and then try and manifest those through the universe or whatever. That's the way it was pitched to me originally. But to me, it's intention, right? I'm putting pictures and photos down of how I want to be and how I want to act, things I want in my life, places I want to go in my life, states I want to be in, states of feeling that I want to be in. And I put those down on a vision board. But more tactically, I set a series of goals that I want to achieve that I can measure as well in a book. And that's my yearly goal plan, right? I break them into categories: body, mind, and spirit. And that's just simply for me 3 buckets so that I can a good number. I can think of things in threes. If it gets more, it gets too complicated for me personally. So body, of course, is health, my what I'm eating, what I'm not eating, how I'm working out, what I'm doing for physical activity, things of that nature. And to put it into perspective, when I'm doing my year plan, I always have some big goal out there, some race typically, or some event that I'm doing that's going to keep me training for the year and keep me on track for that, right? Mine for me is money, finances, adulting kind of thing, right? It's work. It's all the things that encompass successful work for me. So I make goals there for, production, things that I want to achieve in the year, maybe certain accolades that I might be after, things of that nature that I know would put me on track for a very successful deal. This year, it's a big number. I put a self-imposed quota, if you will, of a big, scary number at the beginning of the year that I'm happy to report. I'm well on track to smashing here by this year.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, spirit is the third category there. And that, to me, means, my connections with others, my connections with higher power, my downtime, my yoga, things of that nature. And what am I doing there to try and ground myself to be, to be here now, right? To be more part of than apart from. And so those 3 categories keep me going. That's how it kind of manifests for me.
Yeah. And Mike, I want to unpack a little bit of this, because you just said a lot of really cool stuff. Starting with your goal setting at the beginning of the year, you create a vision board, and you kind of pointed out that there's some kind of hokey ways that people do vision boards. It's real easy to put pictures of things you want to buy, a new car, or places you want to go, some exotic vacation, and those are just boxes that you check. But that's not really your style. It sounds like you're going much deeper, because you said that you're contemplating on mental state, or can you elaborate on that? You're going way deeper on what.
You bet. So there's 2 things I want to make it clear, and this is just Mike's way of doing it, right? I was introduced to the concept of a vision board by a friend of mine named Bob Grew about 8 or 9 years ago. And I had a friend named Jeff who was doing a vision board, and I always considered him the barefoot hippie kind of individual. And I just kind of chalked that up to some hippiness, if you will. That was my thought process at the time. But Bob introduced me to a vision board, and he actually showed me some numbers that he had on his vision board, and a trip and a house, that he had, an investment property that he had on there. And I watched him throughout the year manifest these things, if you will, in his life, right? You can call them manifesting, or you can call him working for them and checking them off. However you want to look at it. those things materialized for him. They started on a graphic board and they ended up becoming reality. So I asked to jump in. So I put a vision board together. I put some things on the vision board that I wanted in my life. I found that it was hard for me to go. I didn't know how big I could go, or I had some attached, issues with thinking things were too big and too far. And there's a lot of work to do there. But at first, I started to put some things down, and I was encouraged not only to put some pictures of things that I wanted in my life, right? And some of the things on my vision board were, rental property. Some of the things were a big vacation to certain places, and I would put pictures of that vacation. And I was encouraged to put things down that made me feel about how I wanted to feel, right? Like a feeling. There's a picture on my vision board of a man and a woman from behind holding hands on a beach, right? To some people, that might mean other things. To me, that means a relationship with my wife, right? I want to have that feeling of closeness, unity when we're walking on a beach. And I want that feeling in my life. So that's kind of how those type of things go on the vision board that are a little different than others.
Yeah. So, you just took us through starting big picture, with tangible things that are, an investment property, and, you can have a picture of a house, and these are physical things that vision board helped your friend achieve. So you kind of had started to adopt that methodology. But I love what you said about taking it one step deeper, how these images make you feel. So you're not just focusing on what I want to have from a consumer or materialistic standpoint. You're thinking about, how do I want to feel? And so you're deeping into relationships and health. You're going a step deeper. That is, you're being very intentional. I'll say the word. You're being very intentional about that. And I think I personally am going to start to really think deeper about this, because I have a similar methodology for goal setting at the beginning of the year. Yeah. But you're talking about just a deeper level.
Yeah, and then it's not only how I want to feel, it's also how I want to be, right? Meaning, how do I want to show up into the world, You can feel one way and show up into the world another way. So it's important to bring that emotion with you, I think, and be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so good. And you're really, obviously, you're an intentional guy. So you're putting a lot of thought into, you're really thinking deep on, how does this make me feel, and how do I want to be, and how am I going to do that?
Oh,
how am I going to show up, is the word you said.
Absolutely. To the point where, back to the vision board, I actually have a dream team of people on my vision board. So I have images of people, famous people usually, right, that I know. And it's important to note this. My image of that individual, not necessarily, I don't know how they are, right? I haven't met most of these people in person, but I've seen them, heard them, read them, those kinds of things. And I take out that emotion that I want to feel for them, and I put them on the board, right? So for example, Laird Hamilton, all right, big wave surfer. I don't know if anybody knows Laird Hamilton, but he's a hard charger, right? And there's no question that guy's up early. He gets after it very hard, and he brings this disciplinary, hard work ethic to becoming the greatest big wave surfer athlete, that he possibly can. So I have a picture of Laird Hamilton up there, and there are times on the day where I'm forced or faced with eating options, right? Like last week I was at a conference at a hotel, right? And I don't know if you've been at a hotel and a big training room before, but they put out a spread of just terrible food. Right, there was pastries and cake, it looked like, and coffee cake, and all that kind of stuff. And so when I look at that, and I might be a bit hungry, I'll think, what would Laird eat right now, right? And I know I've heard him on a bunch of different podcasts. I've read his books. I know what he would do. If it doesn't grow in the ground, if he can't see how it's made, he doesn't eat it, right? So he would be on the nuts or the fruit kind of side of that table. He would not be on the pastries side of that table, I'm pretty certain. So
That example.
it helps me keep on track to have those kind of goals and to know that other people are there. I call them my dream team, and those guys help me out. So
yeah, I love that you shared that. I think that's so cool. You're looking at the attributes that you see in those people that you know to be true about them. You're not getting distracted by their, every attribute of them.
correct.
You're taking an attribute that you really admire, you respect, and you want to move towards, and you're embodying that. And you just used a great example. I love that. And then that kind of segues into what you talked about. You said there's basically, we'll call them buckets, 3 buckets of that you live by: body, mind, spirit, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
so this kind of goes into body, right? It's like what you put in your body. And then you also talk, so that's a really good example of that. And then you also talked about you put in an event on the calendar every year, or race.
Yeah.
What do you have this year, by the way?
So in the calendar year 2021, I had a triathlon. And so I put on the Santa Cruz half Ironman, which is long enough for me to have intention throughout the year to do, right? It's a 1.5 mile swim. It's a 56-mile bike. It's a 14-mile run, a 13 and change run. And so I put that on the calendar. It was in September, and it kept me riding my bike, periodically through the year, kept me running. I did a bunch of trail running. And during the spring and summer, when the water warmed up, we went ocean swimming, and I got into a group of friends that are actually very positive, hard charging, super athletic, pinnacle players in the athletics. So I got to spend time with them on Saturdays and Sundays swimming in the ocean. So that's kind of how that works. You put that on the calendar, and then all of a sudden I have something to train for all year. I've had other things other years, and I'm toying around with what to do in 2022. I haven't quite decided. I've got a couple of options on the calendar that we could do in 2022, but that's how that works. You keep a big, scary goal out there that keeps you training.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. So when you talk about body, we talked about diet, we talked about your exercise, you're being active, you're taking care of your health. And we talked about that at the beginning too, with surfing. Mm-hmm. And then we're moving into mind. And do you, if I understood you correctly, mind encompasses work, because there's a lot of deep work that goes into that, which obviously is all mental focus, willpower. Yeah. And then relationships too, right? Falls under mind.
Relationships for me fall under spirit, actually. Okay. Mind for me is everything that has to do with the tactical, analytical, the work, right? How are these things going? What am I doing? And okay. It gets very analytical for me there. I have I cross over from vision board into actual goal setting. Right. So I have actual goals, measurable, attainable goals, things that I know I can put down and achieve, right, and get after. A little bit different feeling and vibe than the vision board, right? Vision board's manifesting. You put some big things out there, but you allow things to happen that you have no control over, right? To make those things happen. And that's kind of fun and awesome. But don't miss the point that every year I write down the things that I want to accomplish in that year, and they're very measurable, attainable, such as I'm going to do a triathlon in September, right? And these kinds of things they're very tactical. So I have a yearly goal, quarterly goals, monthly goals, and I do a Sunday evening. Usually it's either Sunday evening or Monday morning. Better done Sunday night, believe it or not, for what I want to accomplish that week, And so I use those and I put them into body, mind, and spirit. And that's exactly how I work those things through. And I find myself on the 3-legged stool that I call it. If any one of those is off, I know it. I can start to feel it. And I adjust.
I love that. You've given us some great examples of goals and intentions you set around body, mind. Give us some examples of spirit, how you keep that in check.
Sure. So spirit, for one, is connection, right? I need to meditate. I need to have time during my day for yoga. I do hot yoga 4 to 5 times a week. And these things allow me time to connect with source, higher power, if you will. Allows me to clear the cache. If you're thinking on a computer analogy, my brain is no more than like a computer cache, right? Sometimes buffer overloads, and I need to clear that out. And that's what meditation does for me. It actually resets and allows me to reprioritize and put things back in. Spirit is my service to others, right? What am I doing to help other people? Some of that is overt, right? Like some of that is things I'm doing to help my client. I believe in I'm here to help mentality. That's the overarching value I bring to the table, is that I'm here to help people. And if I can help, great. If I can't, okay. That's the overarching deal. And some of that is private, right? I try and practice on the weekly what I call positivity nuggets, meaning I do something for someone random and I don't tell anybody about it, right? It's between me and God for that, and those are the good ones. And it's kind of hard not to share your excitement about something. You just help somebody, some random person, and you got a lot out of that exchange. But it's important for me to work on the habit of keeping that to myself. That is so
profound, because your ego has the opportunity to slip in correct me if I'm wrong. That's why you're practicing that discipline to keep it unanimous.
Yeah,
so
it's
ego can't
humble.
Take root.
It's humility, right?
I love that.
It's a practice, like everything else.
That's so good. I really like that. So you've kind of laid out your methodology, and I think a lot of the listeners will find this helpful, and if anything, maybe have a few nuggets that they could take away from this to apply it to their methodology if it's remotely similar. At the beginning of the show, you talked a little bit about grit, work ethic. I think you call it hustle.
Yes.
How does that fit in? How does that fit into this methodology?
I'm glad you brought that up, because the word hustle, I've learned, has some negative connotations, right? It's used in a lot of media as a scam, right? Like a hustle, like some kind of scam. That's not the way I use it. It's not the way I internalize it. To me, it means ambition, motivation, grind, whatever you want to call it. To me, that's where that comes from. I use the word hustle. I've always found that the more I hustle, the more income I make. And so that direct correlation happened to me very, very early, and I'm grateful for it. And I don't think that for a lot of people that maybe struggle with motivation or ambition, I don't think that I'm glad, let's just say, I was introduced to it the way I was. And so I found early as a kid, I can remember one of the first times I realized that the more I hustle, the more I make, and the more I hustle, the more I get, if you will. I was in junior high school. We had a art project we were making. Some kids in the neighborhood and I were making for class. We had to take these. Granted, this is the late 1970s, so don't hold me for the artwork we were doing. But it was plywood, we would cut and shellac pictures on the plywood. We were half moon sanding the edges of the plywood, and we were taking pictures of like a calendar, either sailing or surfing picture, or maybe a dirt bike or things of that nature. And we would shellac them on these things, and we would take them down to the main drag, and we would sell them for $5 and $10. And we were making $5 and $10 a piece of art that we were making. The more we made, the more we sold, and the more we got out on the street and hustled, we realized, holy cow, we can make some coin here as little kids. And I'll never forget that. It was one of those things where ambition, I was laying awake at night, like excited for the next day. And where was I going to get more pictures, and where was I going to get more wood, and how are we going to go about doing this? That kind of turned into a life of hustle and grind, if you will. I've had jobs since then. Every job I've had almost has had some component of compensation, right? The more I did, the harder I worked. I worked as a bellman. I worked at Nordstrom Women's Shoes in college, right, where there was a commission plan. The more shoes I sold, the more commission I made.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what age were you when you were selling shoes?
College. And when I went to college, I worked. Some of my fraternity brothers were working at Nordstrom, and I went to Nordstrom and interviewed. And because I had some good buddies that were working at Nordstrom, they were happy to offer me a place to work.
I love that.
And I ended up working in the women's shoes department because it had the most commission. You make, but women also turn the shoes in and take them back. So there was this give and take, but I took it at any rate. And every job I've had ever since then has been some component of the more I hustle, the more I make.
So that was really intentional. So you could have worked in any department and save face and work in the men's department, but you didn't care because you realized that you could make the most money by selling women's shoes.
Yeah, it's about maximizing the comp plan.
And then you doubled down on what you had learned through your experience with hustle by selling those posters, those signs. And so you did learn that at a really early age, and you've obviously applied that to your work ethic, and it's been really successful. And, when I think of, hustle or work ethic, I think of just hard work. And you see some people that just are very busy all the time and seem to be working very hard, but maybe there's not intention or focus. So to me, it's really interesting that you've combined kind of talent with hustle to kind of create this successful machine.
And I've had some opportunities through professional mentors, if you will, to dive deep into it, right? Like I've had professional mentors where I sat down and we worked on, hey, what are Mike's 3 attributes? What are my top 3 attributes? And, and to understand that thoroughly, I had to go out and ask peers. I had to ask other executives where I was working in and around. I had to go work with people in different work groups. Give me 3 adjectives that you think of Mike, right? When you think of Mike Miller. And people would tell me things and I would learn from them and I would hear those things. And then I would, I don't like that one, or I want to change that one. Or, some of the things that I heard regularly were, you're curious, right? One of the things that serves you well is you're constantly asking questions and you're constantly learning from people and you're asking questions about what they're reading and where did they get that idea. So I've learned that curiosity has been good for me, right? I've also learned that I have high energy, right? Which is good and bad. There are situations where Mike's high energy can come into a room and not be welcome at all, right? It can overpower. It can be inappropriate. You know what I mean? And at other times, man, if it's a rah-rah and people are not on board with something and need to get brought on board, man, I can be the biggest cheerleader on earth and I can channel that. So it works to my advantage at times and works against me at times. I have to be aware of that.
That's what I was about to ask you. Have you learned to kind of be aware of your energy level, or maybe the energy level of the room you're stepping into, I guess?
Oh, yeah. I've learned the hard way, in business, especially there's a time and a place, no doubt about it. And so many of my clients, I have to take a lead from their individual, the situational analysis and have to make sure that I'm there. But I have, and speaking of intention, I have the intention in every single work instance to be of service. I'm here to help, and that's the value I'm bringing. Is I'm part of the team. I'm on your team. I'm using all my experience, all my energy, all my effort to help you achieve the goals that we set that we set that we are going to achieve. And I'm here to help in any way I can. And so that's what I'm trying to bring to the table. And in any exchange, especially professionally.
No, that's really good. Did that mindset develop over time as you matured? Because I mean, when you were selling signs, the way you described it was you weren't trying to really be a service. You were just trying to crank out as many signs as you could possibly sell. So at what point, or can you even answer that question?
I can absolutely answer that question. I can remember the moment. It was actually a book that I read. I was changing. I was in a career change. I was out largely building my own business for SidePath. Friends of mine took me under their wings and employed me at SidePath, which is a hardware VAR, to go do something different, something that we hadn't been doing much of as a company there in the past, which was helping along clients that have other things that they need help with, right? Vendor selection for telecom contracts, vendor selection for software as a service contracts, vendor selection for things of that nature. And so I struggled at first with what my value in the equation is. How am I helping these clients, right? Am I trying to get a deal here? Am I trying to help them buy a contract, right? Because it serves Mike. Or is it that I'm really bringing some value in the selection process because I have some knowledge, I have some technical abilities, I have some other clients that have had similar experiences, I have a large network. And I've realized very quickly from talking with clients and talking with people that I was engaged with at the time, no, I'm actually helping them or they wouldn't have me around, right? And so I started to learn, wait a second, okay, you are adding value here. You are being, having a track record. So with some self-doubt at first as to what my actual role was with these clients. But what I've learned over time and quickly it happened and now is validated on the daily is that I'm actually helping. And I get thank you cards from my clients and I get gifts from my clients. Which definitely let me know that I'm on track with that goal of helping and being a service. And my business
that's the ultimate goal for work professionals. They know that especially people once they realize the maturity level in their career where they realize I really just do want to help my client or my customer or my patient or whoever it is, whatever the profession is, they just want to help them. But once they get that validation and that's, to me, that's so cool that you got that validation where for sure this was not about just me winning a deal. This was about really helping them in a tangible way where they saw so much value that I helped them with, that Mike Miller helped them with, that they are giving you gifts unsolicited, right? They're reaching out to you and thanking you because they just feel so compelled. And so
that happens regularly and I get told often. And, and then when I help, I sit down after a successful project and always we ask questions. I come back and say, hey, why Mike at the beginning, right? Why did you trust in me to help you, right? 2, what did we do well here, right? 3, what could we have done better here? If anything, right? And then I learn and I consistently try and adapt and get better.
And you do that after every time that you meet with a client? You ask yourself...
after every successful project we complete.
Okay,
right? So
got it.
If they end up doing a project, we will sit down after and I will ask those 3 questions, right?
But this has a wider application, right, to anyone that could complete some big, project, do something for a client, and then they ask themselves, why did they choose me?
Yeah. In your business,
what did I do good and what could I do better?
Correct. So in your business, you guys fund a loan, right? You fund a deal, right? For a client. Right. Why Alex, first and foremost? Why did you take my call? Why did you end up doing it? Thank you, right? 2, what did Alex do really well during this process? What do you think was the highlight here, and would you recommend me for something else? So you're also asking for a lead and referral, right? And then two or three, excuse me, what could I have done better? What do you think? Was there any point in time in this process that you were annoyed or, thought that things could have gone different or could have done something different? So you can learn, right? But more importantly, double down on that why they used you in the first place. What went right. Focus on what is going well. One of the best exercises I ever did professionally, Dave Elsner, one of my professional mentors, sat me down one time and said, I want you to do a strengths and weaknesses analysis. So I want you to write a list of everything that you think Mike Miller does very well. Like what's got you far in life, right? Ambition, high energy, competitiveness, etc. And then he's like, what are the negative things that you don't do well, right? Spreadsheets, numbers, analytical things, right? I started to write these things down. And I came back to him with this long, lengthy list on both ends. And he said, okay, now what? And I said, I think we need to get to work on the weaknesses. And he's like, no, you're missing the entire point. You got in life because you got where you are in life because of the things on your strength list. Know them. Be aware of the weaknesses, right? And watch out for situations that would call for need of analytics and numbers and spreadsheets, right? And then don't volunteer for those kind of things. Use somebody else to help you with those, right? Make sure that you have people around you that can help you overcome those weaknesses in your game. Be aware. You don't have to tackle all of them. Now, granted, if there are ones that are holding you back from doing things and you can learn and develop, there are things that you could work on. But for the vast majority, know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You don't have to adapt. You just have to know how to use them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. That's really cool, because the way that I see that process being really applicable is, like you said, you're asking your client for this feedback, which is so good, but you're also going back and you're reviewing that. You're kind of asking yourself too, does this make sense? Are there things that I can improve and change? And you're iterating, and you're doing this over and over and over throughout the year, throughout the month, and you're learning. You're kind of learning at warp speed if you really take that process serious every single time, because you're doing it, repeating.
You want to do this exercise? I highly encourage anybody to do it. Go to 3 people. Go to your boss, your direct report, right? Whoever you directly report to, owner of your company, boss, what have you, and say, hey, I'd like you to think about 3 things that come to mind when you think about Alex, right? Or you, or whoever I'm talking to. Start there. Go to your spouse, significant other in your relationship, somebody that you interact with daily. Ask them the same 3 things. Give me 3 things that you think about when you think of me. And then go to somebody that you just know, like a coworker, somebody that you interact with pretty regularly, and ask them. And you may start to see the same couple of things come up over and over again. This is your brand. This is who you are. This is what people think of when they think of you. And that's very good, because it may be very different than your own self-image. People may think differently of you than you think of yourself.
No, I think that was really good. You gave 3 really good. So you go to your boss, you go to your spouse, you go to your coworker. It basically sounds like just 3 people that you're around a lot, that know how you work, how you act, and then ask them, what are the 3 attributes that you would
just give me 3 attributes that come to mind
me by.
When you think of me, right?
When you think of me,
you may want to give them some time. You may want to walk away and say, hey, look, come think about these things and come back to me. And like I said, I've heard mine many, many times, right? I'm ambitious. I have high energy. I'm curious. Those things come into the conversation quite a bit. And so I've also heard that, I'm competitive. And that can be good and that can be bad. There have been situations where I can be super competitive and it's not fun, and for other people. And And it's not fun for me too. Sometimes I put a lot of pressure on. I get that butterflies in the stomach. That's not a positive. Those things aren't always great. But I know you put me in a situation where there's 5 of us and we have a goal to go for. I'm going to get after it. I know I can channel that competitive nature. So it's good. It's good and it's bad.
No, that makes sense. I know this is the point of the show where we kind of want to start to wrap things up. But before we let you go, it's kind of customary. We like to ask you, if there's any intention that you had for the show that you haven't yet, if there was anything basically that you're holding back that you haven't yet expressed that you want to leave the listeners with, any kind of wisdom drop.
I'm happy to do that. And I did. And I was thinking about this, the conversation I wanted to have, I think we had a bit on, which is hustle, right? And it often has a negative connotation, as well as does motivation. People like to be motivated. If you're like me, if I'm like you, we read lots of books, we listen to lots of podcasts. I listen to lots of books, audio books as well. I'm constantly looking for that motivation, if you will, that spark. And I have it naturally. I'm very grateful for it. I think that some people are turned off by that term, hustle, grind. And I think sometimes people in today's society are like, well, wait, I could do things a little differently, or I don't have to have that motivation, or maybe I'm just not as chipper as that individual. I think that some of that is BS. I think the vast majority of us all have some want and some ambition. And I want people to challenge that. That would be my one thing I would want to say to the audience is lean into that ambition. I think everybody has it. And I think only when, in my life, only when I'm working and growing am I completely happy.
Mike, I think that's a great challenge to leave the listeners with, because you're kind of presenting us with the negative side of it, but then you're saying, I'm going to leave you with this challenge to kind of contemplate the positive side of it, that, challenge that misconception. You would call it a misconception that hustle, motivation, ambition, everybody's saying you gotta be motivated. You need to have hustle to accomplish your goals. Is that really a negative? Think about how that could be a positive. I think that's a great way to leave this. Yeah. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. I've learned a lot. I've taken a book of notes while you were talking. I trust that a lot of the listeners from the Student of Intention community have learned a lot as well. And appreciate you coming on.
Have intention, man. Don't go by your day without it. Don't go into a situation at work without it. Don't go into your next meeting without it. I literally will ask myself how do I want to show up in this meeting? How do I want to be in this meeting on the meeting by meeting basis, day by day basis, conversation by conversation basis, right? And if you have some intention, you'll get further than coming in with no expectations, no intentions, and no idea of how that outcome went.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.